True crimers, welcome to Break the Case. I'm your host. I'm Jen Coffindaffer. Listen, I wish I had some great Merry Christmas morning cheer here coming to you right ahead of the holidays, or in the midst of the holidays. But I tell you what, all of this murder, shootings, stabbings, it's been really a pretty tough week. But I wanted to hone in on the information regarding the Brown University shooting. Uh, this is the type of case that is just right in my wheelhouse. I'm going to get right into it. I first want to start off with the messaging that we have received from authorities regarding the shooting. I'm going to put on the stage here so you can see the players. And I want to talk about who everyone is. At the podium, who is almost always at the podium, is Mayor Smiley of Providence, Rhode Island. And I want to talk about that really quick, how unique and rare that is for a mayor to take such a lead. Usually the mayor will get up and they will say, we support, anything we need to do. Please let us know, law enforcement, we are here for you. But that's not what we have seen. He has definitely taken the lead, followed closely by the man to his right, who is the AG there in Rhode Island. He also has had a very, very predominant role in messaging, in the press conferences, and clearly in the investigation. Standing behind the mayor in the white outfit, obviously a police outfit, is the chief of the Providence, Rhode Island Police Department. He has had somewhat of a role. I noticed that they're getting him a little bit more involved. He's from Colombia. There's been a lot made of his son that was recently arrested and charged with very serious drug trafficking violations. And then there's also been a lot made of his background. Basically, if you look at it, and I'll probably do a tweet maybe on it. Look, my channel and what we're about here, both on my platform, the X platform, and here, I'm not I'm not about putting everybody down or individuals down, but I think it's important for people to understand from a point of reference the background of this chief. And the background of this chief is definitely not investigations. It is more administrative. Again, he came from Colombia, so his speech when he's delivering messaging is very, very heavily accented, and for me, difficult to follow at times. But they've kept him off the podium a lot. Like I said, they're finally starting to put him on because his agency is leading the investigation. So to me, that's who the messaging should come from, is the chief of police, and then any other police entity that is involved as questions may pertain. You'll see to the left of this police chief is the head of Boston FBI office. They're called special agents in charge. We don't call them SACs like in other departments, ATF, they say SACs, Secret Service, they say SACs. We say special agent in charge. That's how even when we talk to them, we call them boss and we call them SACs. So anyway, that is who he is. And I'm going to talk about him in a moment. To the left of that is the president of the university, of Brown University, this female. From the very beginning, if you recall, one of the first press conferences they had, she had just gotten off a plane. So I like to give her the benefit of the doubt. She was flying out as soon as she heard the news. She got on a plane and flew back, which, well, she should have canceled her arrangements because that is the most important thing happening. But, even after hours, I think it was 5 hours or so after, she still didn't really know what was going on. She was particularly asked about the class and what was going on. In other words, was it a study hall? Was it actually tests being taken? What in the world was happening? She had no idea. And she at least said that. She had no idea, but it gives one really a lot of pause. I mean, many of us fly all the time, and for people who fly, you can always get internet, almost always. I can barely think of a flight that I haven't been on. It might be interrupted. It might not be the best, but you can definitely get internet to do that communication, to text message minimally. Even if you can't speak, you can text over the internet when you're flying, just to get read in on what the heck was going on. I'm going to talk about her more in a minute too, because I want to go over the latest press conference, but I also need to show you here this individual. He is who's
in furtherance of the investigation.
Really quick, I am going to show that news clip, but that is the gentleman that's actually the chief of the detectives. He is the man. He is the one that's supposed to be leading the charge here. The buck stops with him, and he made it very clear in this clip. Actually, I will bring up this clip right now so you can get introduced to the chief of detectives for Providence and who is leading this investigation. This is your guy.
The Brown University shooting. There's really not much I can tell you, like I told you before, but it's just the investigation running its course. Now, this investigation, you know, it's got to be run right, and sometimes we have to do things that, you know, aren't in the public view as of yet. Not that we're hiding anything, it's just the way we work. So that's why we haven't been able to give you much information, but we're trying to do the best job we can, and some things we have to keep, you know, out of the public light until we're ready to come out with everything.
Can you give us a sense of how complicated the room is as far as items in there? Is there a lot? Is there a lot to go through?
No, I'm not going to say.
Are there multiple rooms?
No.
Just the one?
Yeah, one room, and that's it. Okay.
What do you make of the FBI's assistance with this complex investigation? Providence, of course, called in the FBI for assistance. So, how have they been affecting the response with the evidence response team and their apparatus?
Yes. No. They called us, offered their help, and in a situation like this, we take all the help we can get. We are the primary agency. We're in charge of the investigation. We greatly appreciate any other agency's help.
Wow. Okay. Did you all get that? First of all, in police cooperation matters, typically the Bureau does not reach out. It's possible they could have. I haven't heard about that in 25 years of doing work exactly like this, 15 years in resident agencies where we worked hand in hand with our law enforcement local partners. Typically what happens is they reach out to us. But they could have reached out to them, but he makes it crystal clear. We know where this is, what's happening in the sandlot. He controls the sandlot, and then he is saying, we appreciate you, FBI, you know, but this makes so many things clear to me. First of all, why in the world weren't canvases done of that neighborhood in that area earlier? Why wasn't more video commandeered and reviewed earlier? We are hearing, and in the press conference that I'm going to go over, they make it crystal clear they were working from the inside out. Yes, you should do that, but this should have been a blitzkrieg type of canvas and investigation, boots on the ground. And now we're seeing it days later after the event. Finally, they got FBI's ERT out there. Listen, I know the Providence police force of 400 people. They don't have the manpower, nor do they have the expertise in these kinds of manhunts. That's just the facts. It's because of the nature of the kind of cases that the FBI works, that they have more expertise, and the nature of the agency, why they have so much manpower. We have so many analysts, thousands of analysts. The Bureau is not big when it comes to FBI agents. I want to be clear. At any one time, about 10,000 were in when I was in at any one time, 10, maybe 12,000. Now there's about 12, maybe up to 14,000 agents. That's not very many to cover not only the United States, but we're in offices all over the world. So it's just a finite amount of FBI agents. Having said that, it's the people behind the FBI agents that really provide all that extensive manpower. It is compartmentalized, unlike any other agency. And I worked for another federal agency before I worked for the Bureau. There, we were everything. We were evidence custodian. We were ERT. We handled it all. But not with the FBI. The FBI agents should be out in the field conducting the interviews, interviewing those students, conducting the canvasses in the areas, putting together all those search warrants, in hand with the Providence Police Department, but they are a huge force multiplier. And it's clear to me that although they handled that tip that came in and ran that to ground with other agency officials, to me, what happened with that initial tip that led to somebody being disclosed, which I just can't imagine how that could possibly happen when they clearly knew they didn't know they had the right guy. And I say that because at a press conference, when the chief says this individual is in custody, they whisper in his ear and say, wow, really? In fact, I think it was that detective whispers in his ear and says, no, he's just detained. That tells me they did not know. They were just running down a lead. And yet all of that gets leaked. Even Kash Patel did a tweet about it, generally speaking, not with any names, but it was just terrible. How the messaging in this case is by far the worst I have ever seen. People called into question the Idaho messaging. They got it under control pretty quick. And there was huge messaging issues there too, right? The prosecutor saying it wasn't targeted really. And then the, police saying it was definitely targeted. Nobody else is in danger. That's what we're having here is so many mixed messages. They're trying to be transparent, but in my opinion, they're making a muck of things. It's much better to release written press releases that you run by all these different entities that we showed. And then you have some understanding and of each agency, how they view the case, and you put it all together and you release a press release. This is what I'm seeing here. I'm just telling you from the top in these press conferences, these are political showings. This is getting my mug out in front over and over and over again. And it's embarrassing. These should be police-led pressers with their public information officers that are more savvy in terms of meeting or dealing with the press, that can understand what they can and cannot say, that are more articulate and able to send the messaging as to what's going on in these investigations. So to me, the number one mistake, messaging throughout this whole process has been a hot mess. And then secondarily, I'm not going to, armchair quarterback the investigation. We don't even know that much about what is going on in the investigation, but I'm going to armchair quarterback this. And that is, they did not get the Bureau involved early enough, and state police. We barely hear about the state police, and they have a lot of resources. We're barely hearing about that, and that came in later. But let me go over, and one more really critically important thing, and I think I have his photo on here. I want to talk about Mr. Chapman. Is this Mr. Chapman before I pull him up? Yeah.
Report the shooter yelled something.
That's the chief of the Providence Police. Mr. Chapman, I thought I had a photo of him in here, but I might not have pulled a photo of him. I didn't. The person that is considered the public safety chief, he wears two hats, actually. Like, it's the vice president of safety, and then he also wears another hat, the chief of public safety at Brown University. This is the campus police person that's in charge. And I can tell you from working with the University of Florida and other universities, they have their own police command staff. I don't know if people know that. In this case, Brown University has 95 people under control of their chief, Chapman. That's Chatman. And I've talked about him on Twitter. Fox did a big piece. I don't like to get caught up in the politics of a lot of this, because I think it diverts from the facts and what everybody wants. And that is for this person to be caught. But I did put on Fox's piece about Chapman, and I agree with this piece of it. Where in the hell has he been? This is his campus. This is should be from the top, his investigation from the beginning. I posted very early on all these individuals just like running from the site instead of being corralled so they could be interviewed and triaged in terms of who was in the classroom, who was in that building, who was coming from another area. All of that need to be done. It was funny. I saw literally like police officers, and I don't know who they were. I'm thinking it was probably these campus police people. There are, by the way, 45, I believe, sworn officers of the 95 command staff. So the other people are behind the scenes. That were just like reaching out, kind of patting down these people. And it was funny because 3 of them were all in black that were running by. And I was thinking, geez, that could be our guy. I mean, we don't know. So it just was clear to me the aftermath and everything that happened was not contained and not controlled like you will normally see when you have a police authority on campus that knows what they're doing. Now, to their, to understanding why this was their first event like this. So that's very difficult. But were they prepared? I've talked about it, and they said in this press conference, by the way, nobody should get blamed from the Brown University. There's maniacs that come on these campuses and they decide to shoot it up, and there's nothing that police can do. I agree with that to a large extent, but what I don't agree with is just common sense security measures. You cannot leave the doors open throughout buildings on a weekday at this time. Normally, remember, they were locked and you have to have either a code or some sort of card to get in. That needs to happen. Secondarily, the big excuse is being made that, well, they didn't have any cameras because this was in 1965, I believe, when this particular engineering building was built. And yes, they added on, and the new section has all the bells and whistles. Cameras can be added on to any section. It's a piss poor excuse. And sorry, I'm full of vim and vinegar today. It's a horrible excuse to say that these cameras couldn't have been in the older part of the building where this incident took place. So essentially what they said, not essentially, what they said, the AG pointed out, is that in the new part of this building, this engineering building where all this took place, they have cameras, and they're good cameras. So they can see everybody pouring out in hysteria. What they can't see is the old section of the building where all of this took place. Now, what are the chances you think that this shooter knew that? What are the chances? I'm saying high. We know now because new surveillance has been released, and I released it on Twitter this morning, and I really deplore each of you to look at that security coverage. If you have platforms, please put it on your platforms. Please continue to let everybody know that the huge importance of getting this video out there and getting these photos out there. That's how this person is going to be identified. And he is clearly not identified. No chance. Let me put him up here. This is the best photo I was able to find of him, of this individual, I should say. A lot of people are saying, listen, it's a female. They have a hijab on. They have this coat. It's a female. They are referring to this individual as a man. So, and they have a lot more information than we do. Also, look at the feet on this guy, on this person. Look at the breadth of the broadness of the shoulders, the arms. Could it be a female? Could it be a trans person? It could be a lot of different things. I'm just telling you, law enforcement is saying a male. So I'm going with that. Law enforcement has been clear about that, even though they haven't been clear about much. I want to talk about now this press conference. This is the latest big, large press conference that was held yesterday. I took copious notes on this conference. I'm not going to play it here. It was literally 53 minutes, at least on the YouTube, the media YouTube I watched of it. It's long. There's a lot of questions. But I will probably post the whole thing on my Twitter so everybody can just quickly press the button. All right. First of all, some of the new information. At 10:30 a.m., the individual was there on campus. They now know that from the beginning. And I can tell you, anyone who has worked these investigations, this is not about just the moment that this happened. This is the precursor, days, weeks, as to who was there. In other words, one of the first things I would personally do, and I think a lot of agents would do, and a lot of officers know, geofence that freaking building. Geofence it. See who was there. Secondarily, compare that to other days, all in a row. Okay, geofence that building the day before, the day before, the day before, weeks before, and see what commonalities they are. Because I don't think this guy was necessarily normally in that building all the time. Maybe he was. That's what geofence is going to show us. So from the get-go, but now we know, if you were here to listen to the head of detectives that was actually speaking, he didn't invite the FBI. Did everybody catch that? He did not. The Providence Police Department and the no-show persona non grata, for the most part, police chief of the public safety chief, whatever, he's got two different titles, of that university. They didn't think that, number one, let's get the FBI involved because of their digital forensic analysis capabilities, because of their geofencing capabilities, because of the thousands of analysts they have that can pore over all this video painstakingly for hours at a time, and who would do it without reservation because they're so committed to justice, sitting there staring at all of this. Because I can assure you, that's not what agents are doing. And that's not what officers are doing or should be doing. They need to be out in the field looking for indicia of the crime, like we saw days later, unfortunately, instead of right after the crime, where the person could have even come back and got it if he ditched anything. It's just mind-boggling to me that that decision was made and approved by the mayor, by the AG, by the Providence police chief, that it wasn't a good idea to get the Bureau in early. Okay, I'm off my soapbox, but I want to say, and this is important, that this individual at least canvassed the place he was going to commit this crime at 10:30 that morning. And that's what a lot of the new surveillance coverage is. I'm not going to put it on here, but I will put it on. I think I already put it on my Twitter, the newest, latest, and greatest coverage. And you'll see sometimes with that satchel, sometimes without that satchel. But this is the best picture we have. If you want to take a picture of it, it was released by, the authority in charge, which is Providence. So make no mistake, Providence is running the show, and they wanted to make that. They've made that clear over and over again in their conferences. Let's see. They are now doing a 1 week outlook. I think it needs to be further out than that. They say, oh, it's too time intensive. No, it's not, because you do the geofencing piece of it, and then you line that up with now looking at video. And he's also said, or they also said in this conference, and many of you know, that this building is on the curtilage of Brown campus. So it's on the very edge. And they said that's another problem. So even though they have, I think it's 1,200 cameras on the Brown University exterior cameras, and that's critical to understand. Is at least how I understood it, 1,200 cameras on Brown, and they went back and forth, interior, exterior. It made it sound like to me they were exterior, but nevertheless, they're not near this building. And that also is and was a huge problem. So now we have, where this crime was committed, we don't have interior cameras in that part of the building on the first floor. And I'm telling you, I think this guy's a pretty smart cookie. Now, he made a lot of mistakes. I think anyone who knows this guy will know him. Look he walks so weird. He has this mannerism of putting his hands behind his back. For those of you who have watched the footage, This satchel is unique. His coat is a two-tone, very unique. Analysts should be on that straight away. They're going to know exactly the make of this coat. They're going to get it narrowed down, and they should be looking at coat purchases in that area. Yeah, that's what they do. That's what those analysts are doing and should be doing, and I think are doing, assuming that they have that the Boston SAC has approved that. He has to approve it. I want to talk about what the Boston SAC said in this presser. I mean, there's so much to go over. I'm trying to make this quick. The Boston SAC, they called him to the podium. I couldn't believe what he talked about. And this to me, and I say this, not giving any negative comment against the SAC of Boston, but negative comment as to what it seems is more of the FBI purview in this investigation. He talked about their victim witness unit and how they are there to assist, and that's what they're doing. That it was a, obviously, and this is so true, completely devastating to all those involved, right? Absolutely devastating. And by the way, this is a picture of him. He's the gentleman in the yellow tie to the left, right before the president, who's the female. And he just really talked about the victim witness program and how he's here for all the victims and the students and that, we're there for you. I'm thinking, wow. So it seems they've let the FBI lead the show when it comes to victim witness coordination. So there's that. Let's see. The FBI, so I'm sorry, I'm going to get into specifics of what the SAC said. He says they have 13 victim witness specialists that are there to assist. And that's a lot. I guarantee they've pulled them in from other areas. So 30 to assist with all these victims that are going through this. Let me tell you what the AG said. And I'm going to keep this picture up here. The AG is the taller, older gentleman. He says, and I'm going to go back and forth because, again, I took copious notes. This was 45 minutes long or more. The stream was about an hour, but nevertheless, he says, quote, "The investigation is going well." And he reiterates, Providence police are leading the investigation. Okay. The governor, he says that his office role, this was very confusing. You can watch it. He's working to provide information. And then he moves on and says that he's met with other presidents of the universities from Rhode Island to form a working group, and they're going to discuss mental issues. I mean, that's what he focused on in his words. And again, I'm going to post this. You can read it. You can see it yourself. I don't even know. I don't know what to say about that. I won't comment. You guys can make your own assessment on that. The Brown University president, this female, who I told you was extremely confused initially, but I gave her a lot of, I think some of us did, not everybody, trust me, social media went after her like jackals on a dead rabbit. But this woman actually had no idea what went on, what was going on when she initially was at a press conference. And I'm sorry, I know she was flying. That's absolutely zero excuse. And then at this press conference, I think she further, at least for me, I don't even want to hear her talk again. Because now this time, and I want to make sure I get this exactly correct, she addressed why only one aspect of their emergency notification was used. They have two, she says. One aspect is whenever there's a shooting or some other, important event that impacts the security of their students, that they send out a text. She says 20,000 individuals received a text message shortly after the shooting. But then she talks about, because a lot of people have come down on her as to why sirens weren't used. This is what she had to say. I cannot make this stuff up. She said they did not sound the sirens because that calls people to the classroom. She says if we would have let off the Brown University sirens to show issues, that literally people would rush to the classroom. Now, I haven't had time to verify this because I watched the press conference, took these notes, and been looking at everything, preparing for this show. This makes no sense. If you hear a fire alarm in a building, I just had this happen at a hotel I was staying at. Does everybody rush into the building? So you walk into the lobby and you hear that. Do you go, I think I need to come in? No, you get the hell out of there. If I were on a college campus and I heard blaring sirens going throughout the campus, I don't think I would want to stay. I think I would be alerted to a serious issue on campus and I would leave. But that's not what she says. And I'm going to look into this. Do sirens on Brown's campus or on any university campus mean please get into the university, enter the buildings, it's time to come inside? She even went so far to say, as if she would have approved the sirens to go off, that people would have ran, this is what she said, you can watch it yourself, ran into the engineering building. She was that specific. All right. I don't know. All right. She also thanked the mayor and the governor for their support, yada, yada. She says Brown University is safe. And she's saddened that people would say it isn't. Well, ma'am, I got 3 things for you. Your doors were open and weren't required to have the key card, number 1. Number 2, you did not sound sirens so people could be alerted that there was a serious issue on campus. And number 3, you don't have videos in part of your campuses. You don't have video surveillance. So those are 3 things right there that make your campus unsafe. Okay, I'm moving on now. All right. The mayor, this is what Smiley, he's right here in the middle, had to say. And trust me, there's more video footage on Smiley than you can shake a stick at. You could add up all the video from the Idaho 4 case, and Smiley has more video footage time than any other character in the Idaho case that went on for weeks. This guy likes the podium and likes to be in charge. He takes full control at the press conferences. You there, no, stop. Okay, moving on. Okay, come. So this is the man. He says, and the reason I'm critical, I want to make sure I'm clear on the reason I'm critical when it comes to the mayor being in charge of this. And I think this is the biggest problem we have. The person in charge of this investigation, the Providence Police Department, that's who's in charge. They've made it crystal clear. Either the chief, and if he isn't good at articulating information, their public information officer. And if that person doesn't feel confident, then how about the actual person running the case, the detective, getting up there? Or how about this? As I've said before, issue written statements, because you've got all these people involved and there's no cohesiveness in the messaging. How about that? But I'm just critical on him because I've never seen a mayor have such a role on a police investigation. All right. The mayor says that he has enhanced police presence. He's made sure there's more police on campus and in Providence. And that's great. And he should do that. That is, quite frankly, 101 when you have a mass shooter on the loose. That's kind of 101. Yeah, you want to increase police presence. So he's done that. Good for him. He says all schools are in session. Every school in Providence, they're in session. They're finishing up tomorrow and they're in session, and he's going in and out of schools to speak, and that teachers are concerned, that kids are concerned, that people are justifiably concerned. But they're carrying on, and he wants to thank teachers, kids, and his citizenry, his constituents, for having a strong face. I think that's exactly how he worded it. Having a strong face as this killer is on the loose. Yep, strong face. He talked about who's left in the hospital. He says that there are 5 critically ill or critically injured still in the hospital, although he says that they're making improvements. Okay? He says there's 1 critical but stable. I mean, the whole point is, of course, he's the mayor and he doesn't want, none of us want, he is certainly going to put out the messaging that there aren't going to be any more people who have died or who die. But we know that anytime somebody is in critical situation that has been shot, I'm just wondering where they were shot. And are there people that are alive and holding on, but that have serious brain injuries? I'm wondering where we're really at with that. I'm going to try to today, if I can. I've got a busy day, but I'm going to try to look into that, to really what's happening to the other victims. The others have been released, but we have 6 still in critical situation. And I'm just, my heart goes out to them. This is just terrible. And, but Smiley's basically saying, you're safe because we have more officers out there. Again, the AG specifically said the only video in this building is in the new part of the building, not the original part of the building. I did a whole tweet early on about this building, how it was built. I believe it was 1965, and I think it's 7 stories. It was 22,000 square feet. It's a big building, but again, only 1 classroom, and they did make this clear, or the detective made it clear, only 1 classroom was affected. It was on the 1st floor. And I'll tell you, I find it very, mass shooters, people who do these types of shootings, they are going for ease and opportunity. We know he canvassed at least at 10:30 in the morning. Did he canvass days before then? Because they're going to be looking for cameras. They're going to be looking up how many cameras are up there. We can all see them. And how many cameras are over here on this side of the the building, and so on and so forth. So, he did a great job canvassing. He's probably a Brown University grad or student. Maybe not. Maybe he just taught there. But I tell you what, this guy is no dummy. He's going to get caught because he's too easily identifiable by his mannerisms and what he wore. Somebody knows him. Some mother, some brother, some sister. Are they going to turn him in? That's to remain to be seen. The AG addressed this. So there are 2 versions of videos going out, right? The FBI has a version, local law enforcement has a version, which I tell you from the outset tells me how things are really going on behind the scenes with the FBI. Because Why does the FBI feel like they needed to make their own version? Probably because it's better. I tell you what, this is such a great enhanced picture, I think. But anyway, I'll put them both up. I've already put them both up actually in one compiled video montage. But look at those because it just looked bad. And so at the press conference, they asked, wait a minute, we're seeing two different videos. Well, it's clear the FBI did theirs and the police did theirs. What a waste of manpower. Instead of all those people that put that video together, how about if they said, listen, FBI, you have a gazillion resources. You guys put the video together and we will populate it across all of our platforms, across the Providence PD, across the Brown Police Department, across the governor's platform, the mayor, everybody's. How about that? So now we only have one person that's handling that, and we don't have to worry about more manpower not being available for other more important things like figuring out where the guy went after he disappeared off of camera site, which I'm going to talk about that, what they said about that. So let's see. So the chief then comes on and he says, well, listen, because he's asked, why did it take 3 days because business owners are coming out and they're saying, man, nobody asked me anything. I mean, this is Brown is not it's not some rural campus that sits far away from the city. This is in the heart of a residential area. There are businesses around. And this store owner says, listen, no one's coming to me. They're just coming to me now, 3 days later. And the police chief gets up and he says, well, he basically changes the subject and doesn't answer that question. But I can tell you why. They didn't get the Bureau and the state. And again, we haven't heard much at all from the state authorities. Why didn't they get them involved earlier? All of this is going to be Monday morning quarterback. They need to have an after actions review of this investigation and of everything. So I'm not going to get into that because I really just want to see what we can do to help find this guy. But I want to make it clear what law enforcement does and doesn't know. And it's clear to me they took a long time off the investigation, not focusing on getting video from everywhere surrounding. So unfortunately, we know that. But the chief says, but now we're working on all of that. We're working on canvassing and working on getting video. I'm like, you think that's why we're finally seeing it? Instead of seeing this within hours after, which is what I would have expected. I would have expected the Bureau to just search warrants and get all these videos and be on it with the state police, with Providence, with everybody, and get it out there. Now we're finally seeing all this. All right. The president. Okay, this was interesting. This blew up on social media. I mean, my view about it, this was about an individual who was Lebanese, who was on Brown's website, and people were looking him up, and he resembled, I guess they felt, the mannerism and the stature and the complexion and everything of the person that we have video of, right? So this was splashed everywhere, everyone. This person's name, people saying this is him. This is against, this is a Jewish situation. It's a Islamic terrorist type message, to somebody who was shot in there. Listen, law enforcement is saying they don't know. I'm not sure I believe that because we do know something was yelled. I mean, do we really think somebody went in there and said, Abigail, this is for you. Professor Plum, I don't appreciate the B. I don't know what's going to ferret out, but I will tell you this, and this is not unusual. The AG addressed this, and he said, listen, yeah, two people, he downplays it so much. Two people have said some things about what was said, but some of the others didn't hear anything. This is an AG. This is not a police person. Any police person will tell you tunnel vision takes over in these cases. In my classes, when I do active shooter training, I hire actors to come in, and they run in and they shoot me with paintballs, and I go down and I tell them very specific things to say. And I have them actually dressed in very particular things, like a pink scarf or a hat or, jeans or shorts. It's something people can readily point out, like not all in black. And I'll go through a class of 30 and maybe two people heard something. And then of those two people, maybe one person heard that they said, coffin daff or die, because that's something I've had them yell. And the others, some people are like, I think it was a pink scarf. And some people said he didn't have a scarf. People see different things because they're even in a situation that isn't obviously a real school shooting. It's just a class. Now, yes, they're surprised that I have somebody come in and shoot me, but they are caught so off guard, even in that quasi panic situation, that they can't remember things. And when you watch this training, training thousands, this is what happens. And so for the AG to get on and say, basically poo-poo what was said, because it's going to come out what was said. And I got a feeling that little community of Providence seemingly to want to, anyway, it's going to come out what was said. And it's probably not going to paint Brown University or Providence in a good light, or keep in the dark something that they don't want out. But nevertheless, they shouldn't poo-poo it by, well, other people didn't really hear it. So I was very disappointed in the AG saying that. Again, I don't want to hear from the AG. The AG should be coming out after, just like what happened in the Charlie Kirk case. That was a huge case, right? You didn't hear the defense attorney in that, the prosecutor came out and gave almost the entirety of the press conference after charges were going to be levied to talk about the legal side of things. When I hear a lawyer on the podium talking about the investigative side of things, I just close down. He hasn't run an investigation, and neither has that mayor. And really, not the police chief either. Now, that lieutenant, I believe he has. Small scale. And I believe he's the one calling the shots here. All right. Nevertheless. Let's see. President said, okay, so I digress. The president said basically she has no idea what anybody is talking about regarding anything being removed from their website. I'm like, wow. Have you even watched one bit of what's going on in this case? Anything in mainstream media? Anything in social media? Have you been querying? Have you spent the hours we all have spent on this case trying to get our hands on all the information? And you don't know that somebody was removed from your own site? In fact, this is what she says. You'll have to ask my communication people. This is the problem with this case. When you have your leadership, the head of the boat, the head of the investigation, the head of your university, who has no idea what the hell is going on, you have a problem. You have a big problem. And that is the problem here. Anyway. Again, the mayor got on, so I'm just going in order. Then the mayor comes back on. He says, I want to make it clear there are no credible, actionable, single threats since Saturday. It's so funny. He's like, actionable, single, credible threats since Saturday. Okay. There were no actionable, single, credible threats before the shooting either. All right. The police and the mayor both said during this press conference they have no idea where the shooter is. That was the message. They don't know. They don't know who he is, and they don't know anything. I also want to say there is somebody that they said that they believe is associated with him in some way, shape, or form. So video footage where they must have been together or somehow interacted, and they've released that as well. I've released that on my Twitter. Please take a look at that. Again, AG said there's few cameras near this building, and that's why they don't have, photos of him. All these photos, by the way, are not campus photos. These are all photos from ring cam, from street cams, from other camera vantages off the campus. So I wanted to make that clear too. I want to also put up here, and I'm really sorry about this banner. I need to figure out how to get it off. So sorry about it. But this is the area, especially for those of you who knows Providence. Police did put this out. I thought this was very helpful in terms of where they're looking, where everything happened, just to get, I always like to get a lay of the land. So there's your lay of the land there. Okay. This was really important. The FBI came back up, and the special agent in charge of Boston said very clearly, the MIT professor who was shot in his home, killed in his home, has no relation that he knows of to this shooting. So the FBI made a stance on that. They don't have any information, but he also made it clear he's relying on the information from that jurisdiction. And that jurisdiction is being really closed-lipped. I've looked into that case some just to see if there's a nexus. I mean, he was Jewish. Let's be clear on that. The professor who was shot, at least from my research, he was Jewish. I don't know how practicing he was or anything like that, but that's the information. And then also in this case, I think we need to keep track of something that is the white elephant in the room. And that is, this all happened during Hanukkah. When you look at what happened on Bondi Beach in Australia, when you look at the Brown shooting, and when you look at the shooting with the professor, it's in and around that season. And I only say that because when you look at the Bondi shooting, that was clearly a terroristic act targeting Jewish individuals who were celebrating. Clearly, absolute terrorism against Jewish people. If you look at the shooting against MIT, we don't know the motive. I mean, it literally could be a lover. It could be a student that's lashing out. It could be a religiously motivated. We just don't know. But you can't just ignore the fact of when everything is happening. And same with this shooting. We don't know what the reason is. That's what they're saying. They don't know, and they're not going to tell us what was said. Listen, if it would have been Professor Plum, I'm teed off about my grade, I think they would have let us know that probably. They don't want us to know what was said. All right, the president comes back on and again talked about those two security systems and that they didn't have the siren go off because that would make people run into buildings. Okay, the police chief came on and said they are still interviewing students interviews, which makes a lot of sense. That's a lot of people who were in and around. Everybody needs interviewed, by the way. Anybody who was on that campus on Saturday needs interviewed, and that's going to be a lot of people. Now, thank goodness it wasn't a normal day of school, but anybody in and around, because they might have seen this guy and they could show them that picture and they're like, oh yeah, I remember him, and he had a Slurpee in his hand, and I saw him throw it away in a trash can. Now, the sad news is this is so late that we're getting this footage. And by the way, I believe he did have a drink in his hand. The sad thing is one of the individuals had a drink in their hand. The sad thing is that this is coming to us so late because they didn't hop on this video first thing, which should have been number one, in my opinion, the geofencing and the videos. That I don't know. I mean, I'm sure that trash has been emptied, and so the chances of DNA are probably very slim. But hopefully, Chatman, Chatman, this chief who you can see, I posted it, but I mean, I don't know if it's believable or not. But Fox News put out there he was fired or basically asked to leave from Utah and has had a lot of problems and then became the chief here. I find it very interesting that he has had, even though he's the main law enforcement jurisdiction where it happened at, hasn't been a huge presence at these conferences. He knows more than anybody about his police campus, or should. He should know more than anybody about where these cameras are at. He's the man. I wouldn't ask the president. She does not know anything. But I tell you what, that chief should. And how come they haven't had him up there? Does he not know anything either? This should be a police case, not a mayor case. Again, the police chief says he's not going to say what the shooter said and yelled. This was important. They lost track of the individual subject. They called him a subject finally, that they believe is responsible at a street called Governor's. So for those in the area, that's where they lost him. So, and then an astute media reporter said, "Oh, did he get in a car?" Or words to that effect. Do you think he took a car? And it was interesting because I believe it was the mayor and the chief both turned and looked at each other. These press conferences are killer to watch. Not just talking about what they say, but talking about their actions it's very interesting for any body language expert. But anyway, they look at each other and then they look back like, oh, they've discovered it. I don't know if that is a fact. That makes a lot of sense that he somehow left that area. And if they don't see him on foot anymore anywhere, that he might have gotten in a car. So anyway, food for thought there, that we may be hearing about a car that's important at some point. They reiterated only one weapon was used. I've seen all this going on social media. Was it a long gun? Was it a rifle? They said a 9mm, which makes sense, especially if this guy isn't a, military background, police background, if he's not ever involved with really wanting to know how to shoot, except for to commit this crime like a lot of these shooters do, you would want a 9mm. They're everywhere. You can get a 9mm like you can get a can of soda. And for all of the people saying you can't, you can. As a private citizen, it's just so easy. Just try it wherever you live. Get online. There are particular sites that you don't have to have a license to sell individual to individual in most states. You can get one from a friend. You can have a friend get one. You can borrow one. There's so many ways to get a gun. They're everywhere. And it's 9mm, the easiest gun to shoot. The FBI spent thousands doing testing when I was there as a firearms instructor, trying to determine the best gun for us to shoot. And they switched everything at that time to the 9mm Glock, because a Glock you can literally drop from a helicopter, have it drop in mud, dust it off, and it'll still work. It's the most reliable gun, and it's the easiest to pull the trigger and shoot. There's almost no recoil. So 9mm don't pack a big punch, but man, if you shoot a lot of bullets out of one and hit somebody, or hit somebody with one bullet in the right place, they're very, very deadly weapons. So that's why the Bureau went with them, and that's why crooks go with them. They're way easier to shoot than a 45 or 40 caliber. So it makes a lot of sense to me. If he did any research, and this guy seems like a researcher, judging from the fact nobody has found him, and from the fact that he seemingly knew where these cameras were, or just got really lucky in picking that particular classroom. Again, the president said she has no knowledge, no idea about any scrubbed pages, and this is the first she's heard of it. The chief echoed that. I can't make this stuff up. The chief also doesn't know anything about this. Well, then who ordered the scrubbed pages? The AG very emphatically said that that person whose page is scrubbed, this Lebanese individual, has nothing to do with the case. And in fact said, listen, if this were the guy, we'd have him identified and we'd be looking for him. That's not what is happening. They're saying, so unless they're all lying through their teeth at this point, They have no idea who this is, and I believe them. I believe they don't know. And he says this guy is not the guy. Let's see. He also talks about it's a very dangerous road to go down, putting together the dots that just because this guy is Lebanese, Islamic, his page was down, that this is a terror shooting and it was because of Hanukkah and that his target would have been somebody Jewish. He said that's a dangerous road to go down. Now, he didn't say all those as I'm saying it. You watch it for yourself. That's the inference that I'm making. And he did want to point out emphatically that this is not the guy. So for everybody on social media that wants to press that this is the guy, you can keep pressing that. And if it's true, then you can say, see, everybody, you guys have egg on your face. But boy, these guys will really come off as absolute liars and lose all confidence if they lied that emphatically about this person. So we'll see. The AG also said, this was very important, zero, and he said, zero information about motive. What was said does not show motive related to ethnicity or politics. I'm going to repeat that because it's critical. The AG says they have zero information about motive, and what was said does not show motive related to ethnicity or politics. Wow, that's huge. So that's their story. They're sticking to it. And maybe he did come in there and just say, die, or I hate you all, or I hate Brown, or whatever. We don't know what he said. But what he's saying here at this press conference is not related to ethnicity. So that would mean he didn't say anything anti-Semitic, and that he didn't say anything related to politics. So in other words, I hate Republicans, or I hate Democrats, or down with liberals. So that's what he's saying. That's what he's saying. Okay. I'm just passing on the information. The chief would not say if there was a vehicle involved. But again, watch this press conference. It's hilarious. They're like looking at each other. Okay. So he talks about satchel on, satchel off. I think that that's related to, the times he was there, right? We have 10:30 footage, and then we have footage right after. They haven't been really clear, as I think they should be, as to what footage is what and the actual timing in the footage. We've seen a lot of footage. I would love them to issue a release and say, this is from this street and this time. This is from this street and this time, because surely whoever is in charge of this case has that all set up on their timeline. Surely. Okay. Let's see. I think I'm almost at the end. Okay. So the mayor and the AG had a little session with one another, and the AG and mayor, the AG says, listen, the mayor and I, we get along on everything. We agree on everything, almost everything, but we don't agree on whether there was a mistake made early on regarding the arrest of the individual, that they arrested and unarrested, or detained and let go after hours and hours and hours, which I understand why it took hours. They were checking those ballistics. They sent that to a lab and it came back not a ballistic match. And then that's why they let him go. But nevertheless, the AG says there have been no setbacks in the investigation, despite what the mayor said, because I think the mayor was a little bit more forthcoming that it was a setback. And the AG goes on to say about that arrested or detained person, the lead looked promising and then it wasn't. They hoped they could wrap up the case quickly. And I think that was the motive. People say, well, why did they release all this? It was absolute PR. And that's what happens when you have political people leading the messaging and leading the charge, because it's going to have a political stance. With police, they should be. It's not always this way, but it's way more than it is in this case, where they're worried about their political position as opposed to just getting to the public how the public can help. And at the end of the day, that's what we should have. Videos the times, the locations, any video enhancement that is done, any areas that people can concentrate in. Now we know time 10:30, so maybe somebody was in and around this area at 10:30. That should all also be a message to the public. As far as what was said, I'm fine with not releasing that because it could be critical to the investigation. But then just say it. Just let everybody know we're not releasing that. Ongoing investigation, we're not releasing. Instead of having what I call verbal diarrhea, and that is what we've been experiencing with this mayor and with the AG when this is a police investigation. It's not headed to the courts. They don't even have a subject. And so anyway, those are my thoughts and insights on the case, on the messaging. Hopefully that sets you up now knowing what police and authorities do and do not know. I'll keep posting these important videos that give you more information and more clues. Again, everybody wants to find this guy, and I know law enforcement is working tirelessly to do that. I just wish the messaging and the leadership were better. Until next time, may justice be served.